Hi everybody, we're going to be talking about the Weick article in this video. This is one that I would strongly encourage you to watch, detail, and look at as much as you possibly can. One of the challenges in a reduced course is the fact that I can't go into Weick as much as I would like to, but this is probably the most important organizational theory article related to schools. This class in org theory would not exist without this article. This article was cited 6,621 times in peer-reviewed articles. It is the most cited organizational theory article that exists. This concept of a tightly coupled and loosely coupled system related to schools and how that helps management of educational organizations, it's the piece for why this class exists. We offer master's level work theory at this institution and doctoral level. This class would not exist without the Weick article. This is the most important article that you will see on educational organizations. He is a business professor. He is not an education professor. That is also important to note. He did cross-discipline studies on education and basically showed how we relate how schools function versus how business function, why we have organizational theory. He had the concept of mindfulness and then organizational information theory. I'm going to talk about both of these real quick because I think it's important to at least mention these since we're looking at Weick. So mindfulness is basically saying that organizations play it safe. This relates huge to schools that are performing well. They play it safe all of the time. Your top performing schools make safe hires, they make safe moves, they're not willing to do anything risky or try anything innovative for the most part because they want to be safe. They want to simplify, they want to have resilience, they want to make sure that there's no failure that exists, and they want expertise within the organization. So if you work for an organization that's doing well, changing that organization, pretty difficult. But taking elements from that organization and going to another organization that needs change, that's what we do in education. So try to think of this if you're doing anything related to organizational culture on your dissertation. This is an Ed Harris concept. He's big on organizational culture. If you can tie that into mindfulness in the ways that business looks at mindfulness, that might benefit you. So the other concept was basically saying that if we can remove uncertainty for stakeholders and give information on everything that's going on to all the stakeholders in the organization, it improves morale and job satisfaction. I think that's an important contribution, but I would argue that most of us are working in districts now because of how loose our school setting is in Oklahoma, that we have so many school districts. You know the information when you need to know it. If we were in the state of Florida that has 20 school districts, this would be important theory. This theory is a no-brainer in Oklahoma because we have so many school districts. So what can you do? How do you improve how information is disseminated? This basically is that idea of site-based management that we've already talked about a few times in here. Should the principal make the financial decision? Should the principal make the hiring decision? And the superintendent just sign off on it? How's your information distributed in your organization? Could there be a more efficient and effective way to do it? Are there social networks that the organization uses to get the information out? That's important as well. So this is probably one of the most difficult articles that you ever read in your life. This will be tough to get through, it'll be tough to understand, but I want to break it down in a way that you as a practitioner can see it and understand it. You have to know this article. If you're doing anything on org theory and you don't cite Weick, it's not a dissertation because this was the foundation for organizational theory. Historically, this article was written in 1976 and we're still talking about it 40 plus years later. That's huge. Principals and central administrators were all managerial, so Weick looked at this from a bureaucratic perspective. So when you read this and you say, well, principals aren't managers anymore, well, yeah, they were in 1976. They're still managers, they're just a lot more things besides just being managers now. The context is important and you have to see that and you have to understand that here. So loosely coupled systems versus tightly coupled systems. In a loosely coupled systems, Parts of the organization work on their own and they don't depend on other parts. Different concerns happen and are separated at different levels, and organizations are centralized. Different types of evaluations help you understand performance. Are schools loosely coupled? 1,000,000%, yes they are. In a tightly coupled system, organization parts are highly dependent on each other. If one fails, the rest of the organization fails. One party could shift throughout the organization and all stakeholders know that there's a problem. Inspection and feedback in management of those rules and how you follow those rules are the overarching themes. This is, two things to say here. It's one of the reasons why I want you to watch Office Space at some point. Office Space describes a tightly coupled organization. 8 different people get the memo. In a loosely coupled system, that's not the case. Even with government interactions in schools, we're still loosely coupled. You could be managing a school that is an absolute failure in English, but it's highly successful in math. Is that going to impact how the math teachers do? No, because the math teachers are doing well. You're not going to change a thing, but you're going to go in and you're going to reform the English department. Vice versa can happen. So that's why our system is a loosely coupled system in schools. So he's the first one that said education organizations are loosely coupled and not tightly coupled. It was his major discovery and it's what he's known for. Networks have slow feedback times, meaning that you can't change things in schools overnight. It's why we have to understand the culture and how things work. We do not have coordinated regulation from all levels of the organization. Our evaluation is different. Different principals evaluate differently. Different teachers evaluate their students differently. Different means can produce the same result. I'm not going to teach the same way that somebody else who teaches this course is going to teach it, but we could have the same results with the class and performance could be the same. He says that this is a good thing in schools because people have more autonomy. Principals then have more autonomy. Teachers have more autonomy. The organization can be sensitive to unique environments in the community and stakeholders. The example that I use every single time I talk about my interview here, they only wanted to show me Jinx. Where did you want to live? Where do you want to move? Well, you want to move to Jinx. We're going to show you the properties in Jinx. We're going to show you the houses there. I wasn't shown any surrounding areas anywhere else in this state except that community, that property. They were sensitive to the environment because they assumed that as a professor, that was obviously where I wanted to live. Different communities, different organizations, especially in this state, that's huge. Organizations have different environmental fluctuation. Different superintendents stay longer than others, and different superintendents do different things. So this says localized control. The organization can function if there's a breakdown in the system. If the superintendent leaves, the building still might function. There's more opportunity for solutions and change. If teachers and principals are happier because you're looking at the local context and the community context, they're going to stay. There's more expensive to change in a tightly coupled system than there is a loosely coupled system. So I only will present articles that matter in the context of schools and in your research. This one matters. This is something that you could test this. You could try it. You could compare a tightly coupled district to a loosely coupled district. If you are doing anything with school organization, if you say the word school organization in your dissertation and Weick is not after it, is not before it, if it's not 2 or 3 pages in, I'm going to take your dissertation and I'm just going to bang it against my head for a while, because if you're talking about organizations of schools, you have to address it and you have to mention Weick. There's no way around it. So you need to consider this article. If you're going to do organizational theory, this has to be in your dissertation. If you're not, you know that this is one of the seminal pieces in the field. So take this on your own, look at it, try to get through it. If you can't, I'm going to still talk about it in class, but I want you to watch the video before I talk about it in class. Thank you.